Nobody uses all 18 tools. Most people end up using the same 3 over and over again. The pliers, the main blade, and maybe the scissors. Every multi-tool brand knows it, but they still charge you for all 18. That gap between the tools you paid for and the 2 or 3 that do all the work is the whole con this category runs on. The box sells you tool count and tacticool coating and survival gimmicks, and your pocket gets by on the pliers and a blade. I have carried and beaten on most of this stuff for years, and once you see the trick, you cannot unsee it. So here are 9 multi-tool brands that only dumb people buy, counted down from the merely silly to the one that fooled the most people. Some of these you will laugh at. A couple are probably in your pocket right now, and the worst offender on the list is a name a lot of you still trust and still pay good money for, year after year. Number 9. The credit card multi-tool, and its little cousin, the multitool-key that clips onto your ring. You have seen these. A flat slab of stainless the size of a bank card with a dozen shapes stamped out of it. A bottle opener, a couple of hex slots, a so-called ruler, a little screwdriver tip, sometimes a can opener notch. Brands like Swiss Tech built a whole shelf on the same pitch. This is the tool you will always have, because it hides in your wallet where you can never forget it. Sounds smart. Here's what happens in real life. The whole thing is a flat sheet, so there is nothing to grip, which means the second you put real force on that screwdriver tip, it rounds off or it twists the card. The hex slots fit the one bolt size you do not have. Airport security reads it as a blade, so it either gets you pulled aside or it gets tossed in the bin, and now your always have it tool is gone. And the one function you use, popping a bottle cap, is already on your keychain and your real multi-tool, and probably your lighter. If you already carry a pocket knife, and you do, the card does nothing your knife and your keys were not already doing. The key version is even worse, because now that rounded-off screwdriver is riding on the same ring as your car key and your house key, and the first time it slides loose in a pocket, you lose the whole set together. I have never met a carrier who is still using one of these past the first month. It ends up in a drawer, and you knew that about 30 seconds after it arrived. At least the card is cheap. The next one has the nerve to charge you $40. Number 8. The tactical pen that swears it is also a multi-tool. Machined aluminum or titanium, a pointed glass breaker tip on one end, a little crown on the other that the marketing calls a DNA collector, which is a real phrase they use, and it is sold to you on self-defense and smashing your way out of a sinking car. 2 problems, both fatal. 1. It writes exactly like a $2 pen, just heavier, because under the operator styling, it is a $2 refill in an expensive tube. 2. Most of those glass breakers are aluminum or soft steel, and aluminum does basically nothing to modern tempered glass. The tips that shatter a car window are tungsten carbide, and the ones bundled onto a $40 pen usually are not. So you are paying a premium for a worse pen bolted to a self-defense fantasy you have never once rehearsed. I have picked these up in shops, written a test line, and set them right back down. If you want a pen that writes upside down in the rain and takes a beating, a Fisher Space Pen costs less and does not pretend it can take a man down. And the self-defense angle falls apart the second you think it through. Any instructor will tell you a pen is a desperate last-ditch tool that needs real training you do not have, and in most places you could just carry an actual folding knife instead. You are buying the fantasy, not the skill. Unless you are John Wick, this is a heavy pen and a prop. Skip it. At least a bad pen still fits in your pocket. Number 7 does not even manage that. The gas station survival multi-tool. You know the exact one I mean. 14 tools, 18 tools, an axe head on one side and a hammer face on the other, a whistle, a fire starter rod tucked into the handle, all of it shrink-wrapped next to a photo of a guy rappelling down a waterfall. RoverTac makes them. The Gerber Bear Grylls line leans all the way into it, and there are 100 no-name versions on the same rack for $20. Here is the tell that gives the whole game away. The maker itself tells you to keep it in your glove box. Read that again. The company that built the thing is admitting it is too big and too heavy to ride on your body, which means it is not everyday carry at all. It is trunk decoration you will remember exactly once on a road trip when you use the bottle opener. These sell to people who are new to gear and still believe more implements means more prepared, when the opposite is true, because every one of those implements is a compromise that makes the tool heavier and worse at the 2 jobs you have. The first multi-tool I ever bought was one of these, a red-handled brick with a little hatchet folded into it. I used the pliers maybe twice. I never swung the axe once. It lived in my trunk until the hinge rusted stiff and I threw it out. For a guy commuting to an office, whose biggest daily emergency is a jammed Amazon box, the whistle and the fire rod are pure cosplay. The tool you would actually carry is a Leatherman Skelly tool, or a decent Swiss Army knife that weighs a third as much and never mentions the apocalypse. Number 6 is going to read like heresy, so let me be exact about it. This is not Victorinox the brand. Victorinox makes the best pocket tool on earth, full stop, and their warranty and their fit and finish are the standard everyone else is chasing. This is about the one dumb way to buy Victorinox, the giant Swiss Army knife. The Swiss Champ packs 33 functions and runs north of $100, and the true novelty monsters climb past 60 and even past 80 functions into actual Guinness record territory. Crammed into all that you get a fish scaler with a hook disgorger, a magnifying glass, a chisel, a corkscrew you will touch at one picnic a decade. The function count is padding on its own. They will list cutting paper and trimming a nail as two separate functions of the same scissor. And by that logic, the thing has infinite tools, right up to and including boat anchor. You are never going to descale a fish at your desk in the city. Worse, that fat stack of layers is uncomfortable to actually hold and use, and on the biggest ones, the little screwdriver bits fall out and get lost. A guy at a knife meetup once proudly handed me his Swiss Champ, still mint after years of ownership, and it took me a second to work out why it was mint. He is a little afraid to beat on it. That is the whole problem in one image. It is not a tool you carry and use, it is a paperweight with a corkscrew. The smart Victorinox buy is a Cadet or a compact for a fraction of the price. Slim enough to forget in your pocket, and it does everything City Carry asks. Buy the giant and you are paying for the tool count. You never needed most of it. Number 5. Boutique Titanium, which is where EDC quietly stops being about tools and turns into jewelry. The milled titanium slab, the machined plate with a couple of bit slots and a pry end, sold in numbered drops on grams saved and exotic materials and scarcity. Big idea design lives on this shelf. A rotating cast of Kickstarter brands live here. And the Leatherman tread wants you to literally wear your tools as a bracelet on your wrist. The problem is simple math. A titanium slab does less than a $40 tool while costing what a good folding knife costs, sometimes more. And here's the part the material name is hiding. Titanium is fantastic for weight and corrosion, but it is soft, so a titanium pry bar or driver deforms and scratches on the hard steel fasteners you would use it on. That tread bracelet is clumsy at every task, because a flat, rigid link is a terrible shape to hold when you are trying to turn a screw. I get the pull, I really do. Titanium feels wonderful in the hand, warm and light and expensive, and it never rusts. But feel does not do the work, and I have watched carriers pay knife money for a pretty block that opens a cardboard box worse than a $1 box cutter. If you truly want titanium in your pocket, honest titanium tools exist under $50. The rest of this shelf is priced like tools and sold like art. The drop and the grams are the product. The screwdriver is along for the ride. Number 4. The hardware store logo tax, a big trusted brand name stamped onto a plain generic tool. The Ozark Trail Multitool, the Stanley, a chunk of the mossy oak and lower DeWalt tier. A familiar logo on a tool that came out of the same kind of overseas contract factory as the $15 no-name hanging right next to it on the pegboard. The name makes you feel like you bought safety and standards. The tool tells a different story once it is in your hand. Carriers rank the Ozark Trail Multitool blade among the worst they have handled, and that is the funny part, because the $10 Ozark Trail folding knife from the same Walmart aisle is a beloved little beater people carry for years. The Multitool is the dud, not the brand. Same story with a yellow job site logo. A DeWalt sticker earns its keep on a drill, but on a $20 Multitool it is riding on a reputation built by power tools, not by pliers. When Project Farm lined a whole rack of these budget names up and tested them head-to-head, the cheap ones came back wildly inconsistent from one unit to the next, which is what you would expect from a logo licensed onto whatever was cheapest to build that quarter. So here is the move. If you want cheap, there is nothing wrong with buying an honest, no-name clone, with your eyes open knowing what it is. Just do not pay a few extra dollars for a familiar logo, and tell yourself the logo bought you quality, because on these it did not buy you anything. If this is talking you out of a purchase you would have regretted, do yourself a favor and subscribe. Calling out what is worth carrying and what is a con is the whole reason this channel exists, and the next teardown might save you even more. Now, the last 3 are the ones that actually cost you real money. Number 3, SOG. And I want to be fair here, because SOG is the trickiest name on this list, and if I am not careful the comments will rightly tear me apart. SOG leans hard on its heritage. a name pulled from a Vietnam-era special operations unit, and it built its brand on that tacticool feeling. Blacked-out coatings, spring-assisted blades, aggressive operator styling, the whole aesthetic of a tool that wants you to believe it has kicked in a door. A lot of that lineup is exactly that, styling you are paying a premium for. The old Paratool failed carriers straight out of the box. The assisted open mechanism is a thing you pay extra for, that adds a spring and a failure point, and that you do not need on a set of pliers you deploy by hand anyway. The bit driver has a reputation for twisting under any real torque, and the warranty, by a lot of owner accounts, wants your original receipt before it does anything for you, which is not the send-it-in no-questions promise you want backing a tool at this price. Most of it is built in Taiwan or China, at money that flirts with the American-made competition. Now, credit where it is due, and this is the reason SOG sits at 3 and not higher. The plain PowerPint and the Power Access are terrific, right around $30 to $40, with compound leverage geared pliers that punch way above the price, and they are the tools the value crowd quietly reaches for when nobody is trying to look cool. The PowerPint weighs almost nothing, clips into a fifth pocket, and those geared jaws make cuts your hand should not be able to make. That is a real tool at a real price. The blacked-out tactical ones sitting right next to it cost more and do less, so the brand is not the trap. What gets you is walking past that boring, brilliant $30 tool to pay up for the blacked-out assisted one, because it looks like it means business. Buy the plain one and leave the operator cosplay on the shelf. Number 2, and this one is going to sting, because I love Leatherman, and that is exactly why it earns a spot. Leatherman is the buy-it-for-life king. Made in Portland, Oregon, backed by a 25-year warranty they honor. You break it a decade in, you send it back, and it comes home repaired or replaced for the cost of shipping, roughly the price of a sandwich. Leatherman itself is the smart buy. The dumb move is climbing the price list for capability you will never deploy. The Charge Plus TTI runs somewhere around $175 to $200. And by Leatherman's own tool layout, it is virtually the same tool as the Wave Plus at about $130. That $70 premium buys titanium handle scales and a fancier blade steel, the S30V the knife crowd loves, on a tool whose pliers and bit driver do the identical work either way. And that upgraded steel is harder to sharpen back to an edge in the field, so for most carriers it is a downgrade wearing a flex. Then there is the Signal, which bolts on a hammer, a whistle, and a fire starter rod, and drops the scissors to make room, which is prepper gimmick creep on an otherwise great brand. The OHT solves a problem nobody has. Even the Surge, the big one, is more tool than a city carrier will ever put to work. I have carried a plain Wave for years, and every time I pick up a charge in a shop and feel that titanium, I put it right back down, because I have never once been able to name the job it would do that my Wave was not already doing. Want the do-everything tool? Buy the Wave. Want the light one you will actually carry every day? Buy the Skelly tool. Both are smart, and put the extra $100 towards something you will use. Number 1. Gerber. The name that used to mean something. And I want to be clear, there really was a Gerber worth trusting. The old Portland-made auto plier tools and the classic fixed blades, built like a brick, that guys still carry and swear by decades later, the kind of thing a soldier was proud to be issued. Then Fiskars bought the company back in 1987, and over the years that followed, the manufacturing went overseas and the tools got cheaper to make and cheaper feeling, while the name kept charging like it was still 1985. Something like 3/4 of the current line is built overseas now. The budget steel on a lot of the tools is not even named on the packaging, which is a tell-all by itself, and the owner reports pile up. The suspension and the newer NXT showing up with wobble in every joint. Blades that smack into the pliers on the way closed, so they never hold an edge no matter how you sharpen them. Pocket clips that bend on the first hard use, and screws that strip when you look at them. For years, Gerber was standard military issue. The multi-tool a lot of service members were simply handed, and by plenty of their own accounts, they swapped it out the first chance they got for a Leatherman or a Victorinox Swiss tool. When the people issued a tool for free, go buy a different one. That tells you something. Just about everyone in the knife world has a Gerber fell-apart story, and I am one of them. The last full-size Gerber I owned developed play in every hinge inside a month, and that is the tool that finally sent me over to Leatherman for good. On top of the quality slide, they lean all the way into tacticool, the whole Bear Grylls survival lineup. The butterfly machete that somehow manages to be worse at being a machete in exchange for looking cool on a shelf. Now, the honest part, because I am not going to pretend the whole brand is garbage. The Dime, their $20 keychain tool, is good for the money, and Gerber's one real trick, The slide-out one-handed pliers is handy if you deploy pliers 100 times a shift. So buy Gerber cheap, clear-eyed that it is a disposable you will not cry over when it dies. The dumb part, the thing this whole list has been circling, is paying flagship money for a badge, because the word Gerber still sounds like quality in your head. The Gerber your dad swore by and the Gerber on the peg today are not really the same company, whatever the label says. You are paying premium prices for a memory. So, back to where we started. The tools you used in a month against the number on the box. That difference is the entire business here, and every brand on this list is charging you for tools you will never open and calling it more. None of it rides in your pocket or does a lick of work. The 2 or 3 tools you reach for do, so buy those well and then stop. A Victorinox Cadet, a Leatherman Wave, a plain SOG PowerPint, or honestly, a good knife and a real pair of Nippex for the days you genuinely need pliers. The multi-tool bragging about the most tools is almost never the one worth carrying, and now you know which names are betting you will never sit down and do the math. So do me one thing before you go. Find the single tool on your multi-tool you have never once used in your life, and confess it below. My money is on the fish scaler.